When it comes to fashion, you think of Louboutin red-bottom heels, Prada handbags, and Hermes scarves. But what about garbage? The environment is facing an irreversible climate crisis. Automation and human consumption have led to an unprecedented amount of garbage since the Industrial Revolution. And the fashion industry is culpable for nearly 1 billion tons of the planet's waste each year. But some companies are stepping up to develop new ways to make their lines more sustainable. And one of the most innovative solutions came from an unlikely source: water bottles. Each year, textile manufacturing companies like Unifi repurpose over 4 billion water bottles, turning them into recycled polyester fiber, which are used to make hot new fashion trends. And now, some of the biggest brands in fashion are incorporating repurposed plastic at scale. It sounds like a perfect solution, but what are the hidden environmental costs? This is Suddenly Obsessed. Recycling plastic into polyester has been around for nearly 3 decades. Patagonia was the first clothing company to release a line of fleece made from recycled water bottles, but there was something peculiar about the color.
They were coming out in this very sort of lime, minty green that was reflecting the original color of the Sprite bottles that were used to make the fleece.
The innovation was groundbreaking when it was released in 1993, just about the time Hurricane Andrew ravaged the Bahamas and the southeastern coasts. Since then, the effects of climate change have become more obvious. The last decade has seen stronger hurricanes, record temperatures, and the discovery of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, making clear the need to rethink how we use, discard, and recycle plastics. The public's awareness of the negative effects of pollution has led to a heightened sense of responsibility, especially when it comes to consumption. And consumers' demand for sustainable products means the movement is more than a trend.
I don't think it's a fleeting trend at all. I think it's an opportunity for brands to be more responsible.
And that's exactly what happened. Millennial and Gen Z consumers in particular prioritize smarter shopping decisions, resulting in an uptick in fashion sustainability from big retail industry brands.
There are a lot of companies that are embracing this movement because it's the right thing to do, because their market studies have told them that this is what consumers want to hear.
Take athletic apparel leader Nike, the company creating clothing and shoes from recycled materials that otherwise would have ended up in landfills. The retail giant has created entire ad campaigns around its prioritization for sustainability.
Welcome to the future of sports surfaces made with Nike Grind.
I mean, it's inevitable, right? When climate change becomes such a central part of the social dialogue, it's inevitable that companies are going to see that social current and kind of capitalize on it.
But Nike is backing up its sustainability bona fides. Since 2010, Nike's converted over 6 billion plastic bottles to use in their clothing in some shape or form. And their shoes also feature an immense amount of recycled material.
Since 2010, we've used 6.4 billion plastic bottles and converted them into recycled polyester that then becomes a garment in some way, shape, or form. VaporMax, a recycled polyester upper, an air bottom unit that includes 75% recycled material.
Outdoor brands like Patagonia began using recycled materials in their products as early as 1993. But since the explosion of climate change coverage, even legacy brands like Ralph Lauren are finding new ways to make classic items sustainable.
We've been focused over the last year on creating a shirt that uses less water, that's made from bottles that we've picked up from beaches around the world. Our goal with the Ralph Lauren Earth Polo has been to collect 170 million plastic bottles and turn them into polo shirts.
So how do water bottles become polyester? One brand behind the innovation is Reprieve. The recycled material involves an intricate process, sterilizing each bottle, breaking it down into tiny plastic chips, melting them into beads, where it's then stretched into threads.
To date, we've recycled over 17 billion post-consumer bottles. We have a goal in place to recycle over 30 billion by 2022.
That's enough plastic to circle the globe 86 times and is enough to fill the Empire State Building about 12 times.
We're having companies that go all in terms of their sustainability efforts. We also have other brands that are really testing the concept. Will consumers really pay more?
The technology has been revolutionary, reducing waste and repurposing plastic that has significant impacts across the environment with carbon emissions, water, and energy consumption. Using recycled polyester instead of virgin polyester reduces emissions by 59%, lessens our dependence on fossil fuels, and keeps plastic out of landfills.
It's critical to think about fashion when you're thinking about sustainability. We're surrounded by clothing, and clothing leaves an amazing carbon footprint that we can do a better job in making smaller.
So using recycled plastic in fashion seems like a triple win. It's good for brands, good for consumers, and good for the environment, right? It's not quite that simple. Enter microplastics.
We thought this was a genius fabric because it takes old plastic bottles and recycles them and turns them into fabric. Like many genius ideas, that in the long game, there are actually some problems.
Every time we wash something that is made out of plastic, little pieces of plastic end up in our waterways.
And the problems with fleece or anything made of the recycled bottles like that is that they release microfibers in the water when they're washed. Millions and millions.
Oftentimes you can't even easily see them with the naked eye. And the problem with them is they do what scientists call bioaccumulate in the ecosystem.
Which is a fancy way of saying that because they look a lot like food for fish, the small fish eat them, and then the medium fish eat the small fish, and then the big fish eat the medium-sized fish.
And then sometimes we eat those very large fish. But even if we don't eat them, seabirds eat those fish. It just sort of magnifies throughout the ecosystem.
It's estimated that between 1.8 and 5 million tons of microplastics end up in the environment each year, and that number is expected to increase to more than 22 million by 2050.
So it doesn't matter what that original source of the plastic was, whether it was virgin or recycled, to the ocean and to the aquatic systems, it's all the same stuff.
Textile manufacturers are well aware of microplastics and attributes them to how we wash our clothes, or better yet, our washing machines.
Yes, we're concerned about the issue of microplastic. Some hypothetical solutions starts with the washing machine. Today, most washing machines don't come equipped with a removable filter.
Some companies are trying to fix that with filtering solutions and microfiber balls. Patagonia is investing in scientific studies with the hopes of finding a solution. Ralph Lauren and Nike also say they're working with partners to find long-term solutions for the industry-wide issue. So, can we still make the argument that buying clothing made from recycled material is both environmentally friendly and a good business decision?
Sustainability is not just a question of what you're using, but also how much you're using, because it doesn't matter how green the product is. If we're using too much, it's not sustainable.
For several years now, we've had this sort of message out to customers, don't buy things that you don't need.
But not every brand can afford to tell their customers not to buy their products. The truth is, ethical products tend to cost more, especially when it comes to repurposed base materials, which go through a more complex process of sterilizing, heating, and spinning, which forces businesses to calculate the trade-offs.
Creating sustainable products might cost a bit more. We're not going to make the customer pay for that. This is an investment in learning and creating better products.
Companies can either sell cheaper products, which analysts say carry higher environmental and human costs, or they can charge higher prices to be more environmentally friendly.
If we're buying cheap and buying and getting a good deal, somewhere along the way, somebody has been dealt a really bad hand, or the earth has just been ravaged.
While taking plastic out of the ocean or garbage to repurpose it sounds like an obvious net positive, it's a little more complex. Experts say using plastic sourced from a recycling facility to make clothing is actually ending the life cycle of that material. Once a plastic bottle is turned into thread, it can't be used for anything else.
The question arises as to whether or not they're taking bottles that would actually be recycled out of that stream and turning them into clothing, and then it becomes a problem.
But the reality is, less than 30% of water bottles in the US are recycled. That's one of the lowest rates in the developed world.
The solution is just stop using single-use plastic. Plastic is going to wind up in our landfill, or it's going to wind up in our waterways through microfibers. That plastic doesn't go away.
And as for clothing companies, experts say there are more sustainable models that can be adopted, from upcycling old clothing to be made into new garments, or even changing their business practices to implement sustainability from the inside out. Nike has been repurposing its shoes since 1990 with its Grind program, and nearly 75% of all Nike products use some recycled material, which equals billions of products. Ralph Lauren is also prioritizing overall company sustainability. And Patagonia has been steadfast in its commitment to sustainability through its repair program.
We'll take back any product. If the customer is not happy with it, it provides the customer an extra level of insurance that they know it can last them a really long time.
So, Of course, fashion companies will continue to come up with new, sustainable clothing lines, develop newer and better ways to recycle plastic, and clever ways to advertise its feel-good products. But the most effective way they can fight climate change is dead simple. Sell less stuff.